What is one sign that tells you when it is time to quit your job?
Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the Vancher channel. Also, please share your thoughts on this video in the comments. Let's get started.
Story 1. I was getting watched in the office because they thought I was out of my desk for too long, so micromanaged to an extreme. Story 2. Sleepless nights or tossing turning, dread feelings of dread, wishing a car would T-bone you on the way to work just so you don't have to clock in. Maybe took that a little far. Maybe not. Story 3. When many HR professionals suddenly move on to a new company, they are usually the first to know when things are going wrong at work. Story 4. Thank you to everyone in this thread for confirming my choice to try and go back to school and change careers as an old fart. Can't take the work anxiety anymore, and it's good to know my instincts were right. Story 5. The sign telling you to not clock on until after you're dressed in your uniform and to clock out immediately before getting changed out of it. Story 6. They don't appreciate you any longer and just expect you to do the job because nobody else knows how to do it. Answer. I think it's not recognized that I'm growing bored and underutilized in the position I'm in, or that my insights and vocalized frustrations have merit to improve our practices, and that it would be more effective moving me up or around. I've instead been, quietly, labeled with the reputation of being hard to work with. I feel I'm being slowly ushered out the door by allowing me to fail, unsupported, on improving to meet their productivity standards that are constantly increasing, even though I'm doing everything I can, within ethical reason, to do so. If I took it to the most conspiring of reasonings, which probably isn't far a stretch with context, I'd say my supervisor is threatened by me and doesn't like that I don't always roll over, play nice, and be a peon like some of her other bootlickers. Edit, which that last note is just your typical toxically positive person finding themselves in a supervisory role. Always be positive often means don't vocalize frustration or don't disagree with me. Story 7. When you start dreaming about work and they're all nightmares, that's a clear sign it's time to move on. Story 8. When your manager's boss belittles you on a Zoom meeting for taking your allotted vacation, approved months in advance. I answered emails and critical voicemails each day of the vacation. After pointing this out, he didn't back down or apologize. In retrospect, I should have started looking. Story 9. I guess I'm putting in a novel answer. When you get a bad performance review, that may not get you fired, but it gives you a hole to dig out of. None of your current managers will comment negatively on you when you apply elsewhere. In fact, they may happily give you a good reference so they can get you out the door. Maybe they're unappreciative assholes. Maybe you needed to learn a lesson. Either way, start over. Story 10. When it starts to affect your personal life and you realize that you don't deserve to be consumed by stress from every corner. Story 11. When a big, publicly traded conglomerate buys your company, stay to hope they lay you off and you get a package. But if not, no good comes from it. They are there to suck every penny out of your company and dump it. Story 12. Here's an early sign of trouble. You get conflicting directions from different members of leadership who are not communicating with each other. That's how you suddenly end up the subject of a petty power play custody battle. Abandon ship immediately. Story 13. If others are leaving for one reason or another, it does happen, but they're not being replaced. Their workload is just being put on others or spread around, especially if this was supervisory work and they're not giving the title pay raise to whoever they put it on. Story 14. Years ago, I was so stressed out at work I would cry on the way home. Then I started to cry on the way to work in the morning. Then one day I felt like I was going to start crying while I was at work, so I went to the bathroom to cry in private, but one of my coworkers was already in there crying. That's when I realized I had to get the fudge out of there. Story 15. When the company decided it's time to save some money, then they start nickel and diming their people. Instead of actual money, partied too hard. It always starts with penny pinching, OT, and micromanaging the clock. Only gets worse from there. Story 16. Only time I saw the writing on the wall, we were bought by a large restaurant group. They had me transfer all their inventory to the new system and then brought someone in to learn from me. So they were having me train my replacement. One at the end because I got my ducks in a row and made a folder of their labor law violations. So when I got the call to the office, I just dropped it down and said, I'd like to separate with all my benefits paid out and my salary until I found a new job. Also helps my brother is a labor lawyer in NYC, so having that kind of power on free retainer made a difference. Story 17. I go by the fuck this rule. If I open my eyes in the morning and the first thing I think is, fuck this job, I'm making practical steps to get out of there. Story 18. When you start showing up late every day or calling off when usually you're always on time and have good attendance. Story 19. When your leadership is being openly deceitful. Bonus points when you start realizing they are too stupid to know how transparent they are when lying. Story 20. When you start fantasizing about just walking out into the wilderness and never coming back no matter what. Story 21. When everyone starts being cross-trained, it is a clear sign you will be doing more than you agreed to because some dumbass exec wants to save money. Story 22. Being unchallenged after speaking up to that and being highly successful in one's role. Edit. This is why it's so important to stay in a place of newness. Keep interviewing after 1 year on the job. Check your value on the street religiously. Story 23. 1. You try to find any reason for not going. I'm out of toilet paper. I need the day off to faux buy some. 2. You use all of your vacation, sick, to days as soon as they come in. 3. You'd rather chew glass, play in traffic, or drink battery acid rather than go. Story 24. When they used to have office snacks and drinks, but those are now a thing of the past. The Christmas party goes from an all-out party to drinks in the office to postponed indefinitely. When promotions and raises are halted indefinitely. When people you see as top talent leave one after the other. The CEO or any SLT start to micromanage, can't pick a direction to take the company, make terrible decisions, and appear to be completely out of their element, but try to overcompensate by going all in on moonshot ideas that are too expensive and dumb. Hiring slows down to point where the company keeps passing on qualified candidates looking for one specific perfect candidate who doesn't exist. They're hoping everyone they hire can save the company. Stock prices drop, and it's all the SLT can seem to focus on. Your sales department gets gutted. Your company lays off research, copy, UX, recruiting, project management, and any other position that the CEO thinks he can just do himself. Source. I've worked for a lot of startups that didn't make it, and it's always nice to know when things are going downhill to get ahead of the layoff schedule. Story 25. HR director told me he notes who backs into their parking spaces because they are thinking about going home even before they get here, and he thinks they are problem employees. I told him I back in and was going to explain it's because I get there early when the lot is mostly empty and can take the time to back in without feeling rushed. But all I had time to say was I back in, and he snarkily interrupted with, "Yes, I know." That's when I decided I needed a new job. Story 26. When it starts to affect your mental health really bad. In 2 of my previous jobs, I wanted to throw up every single morning because of the anxiety. I'd get home, and I'd be full of dread at needing to do it again. In my most recent ex-job, there were several points I was one bad word away from throwing something at my managers and walking out, and I'm not someone with anger issues. I was just being treated horrendously, and I was balancing right on the very edge most shifts when I was with them. I even considered quitting on the spot and moving back in with my abusive parents. I just wanted out. It was bad. Story 27. When you're so stressed outside of work, it slowly turns you into an alcoholic. Your partner is being affected, and you dislike waking up in the morning. Source. That was me for 2 years. Story 28. For me, it was the day the manager sent around a spreadsheet so we could all list which Saturdays and Sundays we would be available to work over the next 2 months. Everyone could see what everyone else was putting down, and he got 2 keen young guys to start by putting down yes for every single day. No, there wouldn't be any extra pay for those hours, but once the crunch was over, then we could take some extra time off to make up the difference, he promised. This was a lie, of course. I put down no for every single day and began a job hunt immediately. I put in my notice a few weeks later. Story 29. When your boss starts denying promotions and raises because you took time off to take care of your spouse in the hospital. Story 30. When your boss starts yelling at you for things they asked you to do, you did them. They ignored you doing them, then yells at you and calls you incompetent and no sense of urgency, asks what they even teach in college, and that's why he dropped out and self-taught himself. Story 31. When you feel like you constantly want to puke because of fear and panic, being gaslit by direct supervisor that when shoot is imploding, it's not that bad. You're just too in your head. Trying to leave before I do irreversible damage to my physical health. Story 32. When you've barely been sleeping because your wife got flipped upside down by a swing dancer at a wedding and it really bothered you. Then your neighbor you've been arguing with over a property line lets a pig with a Richard Nixon mask in through your doggy door. And since you haven't been sleeping, for 50 seconds you thought it was a monster and you're about to get eaten. And your first reaction is that at least you won't have to go to work tomorrow. Story 33. You are told you can't get an annual raise because you are at the top of the pay scale for the company and you make barely over minimum wage. Story 34. When they order free pizza for the office and you just don't care because you can't stand any of them. Story 35. If anyone starts trying to belittle you or talks down to you, they don't deserve you. Find another job. You're no one's pincushion. Story 36. When you're driving to work, you think to yourself, if that tractor trailer hits me, I won't have to go to work. Story 37. Poor leadership, unruly coworkers, corporate mentality. I've never worked an office job, so I avoid a lot of toxic work environments. But I left my last job at the start of the pandemic, largely due to the fact that my bosses were too enamored with the jerk-kissing mentality and did not spend enough time managing their workers. Young me would have put up with a lot of crap from these kinds of workplaces, but older me knows better. Story 38. I think it's time to find something else when my job starts to take a toll on my mental health. I feel like I shouldn't have anxiety about going to work, something I've been doing 5 days a week for the last 4 years. Not able to sleep at night because I know there's some weird problem waiting for me tomorrow. I'm waiting for the stress-induced heart attack or brain aneurysm or something. But this is a stable job, and I just want to save up a little more of an emergency fund before I start looking for something else. Story 39. Forcing you back into the office for stupid reasons. Excessive micromanagement, including software to keep tabs on the employees. Story 40. My first sign is there is a new CEO or supervisor. The company has changed all rules pro QEers. Work hours, salary have been cut by 10. They are not hired any new workers. Time to go. Story 41. When it negatively impacts your physical and mental health. At my last job, I was so stressed and anxious, I cried during lunch and both eczema and psoriasis were triggered after being dormant for years. Story 42. They talk about employees behind their back, make up lies about them. They will ostracize them and eventually it will be you too. Story 43. You don't feel respected anymore. If you're trying your best and everything still becomes your fault, it's not you, it's the person running the place. Story 44. When one set of rules applies to you but not to anyone else. If you stress for hours before going in. Story 45. Akin to panic attacks and feeling sick, crying when you wake up in the morning. One job I had, I would cry pretty much every morning when I woke up and to get ready. And when I drove in. It also affected my mental health and amped up my depression. When I got home, all I would do was sleep. I was also considered on call most of the time. I would dread every time my phone would ring because it was probably my work needing me to come in. Luckily, with my SO's support, I was able to leave and got a way better job. It's got stressful moments, but it's definitely not as bad as that one. Story 46. When you wake up and hope that the building had burned down, so that you get paid but don't have to go to work. Story 47. Okay, I've already quit, but it's been 13 years. I had PTSD for at least 12 years. I'm finally back to where I was 20 years ago. Story 48. When you barely carry any discretionary or sick time because you use it the week you have it. I plan my sick days and all other accrued time as soon as I get 8 hours. Story 49. When they hire completely fudge, useless pieces of shoot to help with your workload that you have to train, only to find out that those pieces of shoot make more than you. Story 50. No one or very few people are nice to you, or they give you little to no training. Even if it's a simple job that needs barely any training, if no one's checking in on you for the first probably 2 to 4 weeks minimum to make sure you're doing all right, they don't give AF and just need bodies. Story 51. When you look around and all the people you started with are retiring and you hardly know anyone who's left. Story 52. Getting good feedback all year, but 1 week before annual review, they nitpick everything to avoid giving raises. Story 53. When your boss won't stop berating you until you break down and cry over a mistake they made but desperately want to pin on you. Story 54. When you are having panic attacks driving to work every morning, or when you break out in hives from the stress of performing a major task. Time to get out of there. Story 55. When other people start quitting, and they ask you to cover their work just for the short term. It's never short term. And that whole team that quit, now you're covering for all of them because you're doing such a good job. Story 56. Last one I quit was due to their incompetence and lies. Only hired on with the understanding I had a very important appointment for wife's immigration 9 months in advance and advised them every month I would be gone. Had the time off in system day one. Time to leave rolls around. Thursday afternoon, they informed me my leave request was denied, told them it wasn't a request, and tomorrow is my last day. Apparently, they thought I was joking because they called me 23X and left 23 voicemails. Monday. Wednesday the next week while I was in Philippines. Place was a joke all around besides this. Story 57. When you see other people start leaving, I'm not talking about one or two. I'm talking about a bunch from your team. Story 58. When you count down the days and start only living for the weekend, spending ridiculous amounts of money on meaningless shoot, or start drinking to try to manage the misery. Story 59. Biggest sign for me, all your managers saying they want to help you advance in your career. But when it's interview time, they are nowhere to be seen and give you some short cookie-cutter answer why they were busy. I am a easygoing person, but when I ask for help and prep and it's canceled 4 times by them, I start to think it's me. I stuck around for 4 years doing everything to prove my worth with the company. Just left though because I wasn't being challenged anymore. So my dumb jerk went into a field where every day changes. Mechanic side. Been here going on 2 months, and even though I took a $7 an hour cut, I'm happier and have a cool team to be around. Remind me in a year after the honeymoon phase, and I'll let you know. LOL. Story 60. A rightfully popular answer is high turnover, but no turnover is also a problem. In my position, management all the way up to director are young enough and of the personality that they're likely to be in those positions for the next 20 years. Senior roles have a similar problem. Highly unlikely any new senior or manager roles will be added in the next decade. The only place to go is out. Story 61. For me, it was having customers come in and say, "Wow, I remember you here last time I was in. That was 5 years ago." And you just start thinking, is this all I am? Story 62. Sometimes I wish I would get really sick so I could stay at home. I would rather be sick than be at work most days. Story 63. There was a time that I worked in a position that I dreaded every single day and on the weekends. I was only happy on Saturday because I worked on Friday, and I was miserable on Sunday because I knew Monday I would work. If your position gives you anxiety, it's time to go. Story 64. When you're asked to train someone to do your job without explanation, especially if this person is obviously much less experienced than you. Story 65. When they say profits are down, and the head honchos start doing motivational meetings, at least start polishing your CV. Story 66. You have 2 bosses pulling you in opposite directions. Then they decide the solution is to give you a 3rd boss. Story 67. Personal experience is when it becomes toxic. Toxic people and jobs don't change so immediately. Seek employment elsewhere. Story 68. When people are quitting left and right. I work in a woodworking factory making furniture, and we have been struggling since COVID. They froze our 401k matching, as well as our pay raises this year. They laid off quite a few people as well, especially on 2nd and 3rd shift. I work 3rd, and in one area in my building there is literally only one guy working in it because the layoffs cleaned it out. But a lot of people have quit or didn't come back when recalled because of the no pay raises. My boss told me tonight he expects it to get worse because our company is losing $4 million on a weekly basis. I'm only still here because I'm going out of the country in August and need the 3 weeks paid vacation this company offers that others don't. Story 69. I am currently in that position. The owner of the company has given control to his son. All of the good and talented people around me have quit, and they put a good old boy buddy of the owner in charge of HR, so their recruiting is terrible. Our major project has been diluted to a skeleton crew with unrealistic expectations. I have a final round interview at somewhere that will pay me 40 more and allow me to be fully remote next week, and 3 new interviews with 3 other companies scheduled. Fudge nepotism. Story 70. That moment where you realize that you're so tired of tolerating things that you're almost too tired to work on your resume and apply for jobs. Absolutely have to get started on leaving then, or you'll get to the point of quitting or getting fired without a job. Story 71. When I was walking home one day and seriously considered jumping into traffic and getting hit by a car to take some time off. Also, when I said I was struggling and having a breakdown after being worked to passing and they just angrily told me to quit and they would just hire someone else. So next day I dropped off my resignation letter and quit without notice, and they had the gall to email me acting surprised. Story 72. Everyone else is starting to quit, quietly. One day they are there, next day there's another person on their position. Story 73. When you have multiple days off and can't fully enjoy your time off because you are dreading the next upcoming shifts. Story 74. Grinding your teeth in your sleep to the point of cracking one that costs $1,000 to get a partial crown for. Story 75. When you start thinking about which tree would be the best one to crash your car into on your commute. Story 76. Tragic end of coworkers. We've lost 3 men in their 40s-50s in the past 2 days. Yes, days. And one more who attempted to end it with a blade across the throat, but just severed the cartilage and needed 12 stitches. Story 77. Man, I'm at this point and am seriously considering leaving a note and my keys this Sunday. Get treated like shoot, ignored by the bosses that get passive-aggressive when legitimate concerns get brought up. It'll feel so good to walk out and then hear about the scrambling they'll have to do to replace me. Fudge him. Story 78. Your ideas and goals are laughed at, or worse, questioned and ignored. Thoughts that make you wonder if you truly are worthless like they treat you. It makes you go, wow, I was in that deep once you get treated like you're worth something again. Thoughts that it may be better to just drive off the shoulder so you can get hurt and not have to go into work for a while. All happened to me, and I can't believe I put up with that for so long. It still impacts me, and I'm already very easily crushed by people's words. I don't know how to be more confident in me. Story 79. When you file a patent based on your work at home, and your employer asks for a percentage, despite the work being done years before starting at said employer. Story 80. Boss in Maldives or Tunisia. Non-extradition countries I would go to. Paycheck bounces. Padlock on door. Story 81. When your heart sinks as you approach the place or are about to log in. Also, when the same thing keeps going wrong or pissing you off and you have no control over it. Story 82. When the good manager leaves, the one that actually has your back and wants you to make as much money as possible. Story 83. When they promise you something, they'll fix it, change it multiple times, and never follow through, especially when it involves your pay hours. When they take advantage of your extra help. Can you pick up this shift this week? Yes, but I only can this week. I usually have something planned. Yes, of course, thank you. Proceeds to put you on that same shift 3 weeks in a row. Or, it's a big load today, but I'm not worried, since you always stay and help often anyway. I can't stay today. Okay, not a problem. Then gets hours cut because of it. When seniority comes before good workers. We had to give the extra hours to the lazy, incompetent worker because they've been here longer than you. But you're a good asset to this company. We just don't have any more hours to give you the full time you originally applied for. Obviously said in different words. And I understand if the other person senior to you really is a good worker. But when it's a worker that even management complains about, that really ticks me off. Sorry, this was more than one oops. Story 84. When they find any reason to drop your hours. When you get shouted at for stupid things like asking a genuine questions or asking if someone's okay. When they expect you to do more than one job role more often than not. Story 85. Nightmares. I worked a high-stress job in the northern Canadian oil fields. I would work for months on end and then take a couple of months off. My then wife used to tell me to go stay in a hotel and get tipsy for a week, so I was back to being a human being when I got back to her. When I was there, I would have nightmares for weeks. No need to tell you the gritty details, but suffice to say, I was at work even when I was at home. I left that business years ago, and am looking forward to the day when I no longer have those kind of dreams. Story 86. When you're sitting in your car every morning, hesitating and stalling to go in, and can't wait to punch out later. Story 87. There's a lot, but one that's rarely discussed is opportunities to grow. The best jobs I've ever worked were where my employer was actively invested in my personal growth. I once worked an awesome job where my manager explained that literally everyone good in the industry had come from our company. He often commented it was a shame we grew people so fast. We literally couldn't afford to scale fast enough to promote them all to management roles internally. And he thought it was great that many people got poached because of the quality of skill set they'd developed in our business. It was true, literally everyone in our space had started with us, and they kept bringing business back even from competing firms. His department was regarded as the gold standard for how to learn, and I watched people take pay cuts to go work under him. Conversely, I've worked in roles where the manager cut anyone who wanted to grow off at the knees. A team that is growing is a huge asset, not a threat. If your manager won't let you grow and compensate you accordingly, it's time to leave. Story 88. When you need coffee to start your day and plant substance to wind it down every day. I have no problem with either, but both are substances and should only be used in moderation, not daily. Story 89. Oh, I've got several. When your hair falls out, when you vomit in the parking lot before work, when you actively hope for the building to collapse, when you think about work constantly, when the doors are locked at opening time, they've gone bankrupt. Story 90. A lot of different answers here, but as an hourly employee, when they start reducing your hours for whatever reason, it could be a myriad of factors as to why it's happening, none of which are going to keep food on the table. Not necessarily saying to quit right away, but it's time to look for work elsewhere. Story 91. When it's frequently interfering with your personal life. Another sign would be not wanting to fall asleep because morning would come sooner. That's how I felt with a job I used to have the last few months I was there. Story 92. When I was there a month, I got 3 days of training and they accused me of rigging the clock and system to show that I worked hours that I didn't. Absolutely did not do that. Dipped out immediately after. Story 93. When a promotion previously promised to you is given without warning to someone else instead. I'd guess management isn't thinking very favorably of you, for whatever reason. Story 94. When I feel sick to my stomach at even the thought of going in, and then when quit called off, suddenly feeling a lot better. Story 95. This quote always solidifies it for me. I'd rather slam my male body part in a sliding glass door than walk in that building right now. Story 96. If you have to ask this question, like if you're looking for a sign that it's time to quit, you're already halfway out the door. Best to end it and move on. You will only get more miserable. Story 97. When your manager feels the need to remind you that they are the manager. Like, if you were any good at it, you wouldn't have to remind me. Or, when said manager starts telling teenagers they have to stay past the time they're legally required to be done working by. Story 98. When you wake up in the morning and absolutely dread going into work every day, especially if your office has a toxic atmosphere. Also, when your boss comes to you and tells you they may not be able to make payroll this time. Ugh, no. I'm not working for free, sorry. Story 99. If you have to tell your boss that he's late to pay you, again, and that he hasn't paid you on time since you started. Story 100. When just like season finale of The Good Place, that feeling sets in that this is the bad place. That moment is when you just leave. Story 101. For me, it's when I find myself sitting in my vehicle in the parking lot, staring at the front door, just willing myself to go back in there and deal with it for another 8 hours. Taking my lunch breaks out in the same vehicle, just so I don't have to be in the building longer than I have to. Stopping off at the convenience store for a beer or a pack of smokes. Anything to just take the edge off from the day. Story 102. When I got told to suck it up and drink some water when I had just thrown up in a trash can in the back. I worked food service in the kitchen. Story 103. Your job gets changed on you without consultation to a completely different role you never expressed interest in. Story 104. When employees' workloads are increased without pay increases, especially when given a title promotion and responsibilities with no monetary gain. I'm out. Story 105. From experience. Hindsight is 20/20. Extreme micromanagement, bounced paycheck, isolating you from everyone else. Not inviting you to department-wide meetings in which everyone else attends but you. Massive downsizing in which most of the other employees are let go. Thinking about all this made me realize how stupid I was. Above is between 2 jobs I had. Story 106. I'm a black man who was intimacy assaulted in the workplace by another man. It wasn't some type of locker room play. Dude literally shoved me into a wall and forced his hands into my pants. I reported it to HR and they told me that I was being racist and homophobic towards my assaulter. because he was gay and also black, and that I was in the wrong for shoving him off me. HR gave me a raise of 3, moved me to a different section of my job, and then told me if I reported again for anything, I would be fired. A month later, I got a new guy I had to train, and the day the dude showed up, it was my assaulter who literally tried to do it again. I reported it, and in retaliation, my hours were cut, and they made my assaulter my new boss I answered to. I quit. Fudge my assaulter, fudge my manager, and fudge the HR team for deleting camera footage when I got the police involved, and fudge Krispy Kreme as a whole. Story 107. When your workplace attempts to change your contact unilaterally on material terms and berates you when you decline to sign. Story 108. When the cash till has 100 and needs to have dual custody and under camera at all times, which means having to pull a team member at open close that could be helping getting the store ready to sit and watch. As a manager, one would think they could trust a person. It's counted and documented and is on camera. But the dual custody security and policy for 100? Come on. Meanwhile, they spend $5,000 a month on useless security guards that can't touch shoplifters. Story 109. When you refuse to wear your seatbelt on the way to work in hopes that you die in a crash so you don't have to work that day. Story 110. A company I worked at was big on giving their employees company items, bags, pins, company logo clothes, etc. I ordered my set with everyone else. Magically, my set did not arrive with the others. Sure, there could have been a logical reason, but it was more like they were gearing up to let me go and not wanting to waste the money. Story 111. Signs of irritability before work, or if someone brings work up, it puts you in a hostile state of mind. Good employees quitting. From a company perspective, if they start laying off, cutting hours, changing benefit packages, or any type of consolidation, you should be very wary and start looking elsewhere. Also, don't trust management or higher-ups if you are concerned and they assure you nothing is happening. A lot of companies will tell you what you want to hear because they can't afford to lose entire workforces at once from people quitting. Take care of yourself and only what's best for you and your family. If you work for a big company, remember, no one knows your name above your manager, and if they do, it likely doesn't go past that next level. Story 112. When I asked my manager if we could fix an issue that we were having running payments with Salesforce, and he told me the company didn't have the money to pay Salesforce to fix it. I quit a few days later, and the company recently dissolved. Story 113. Paycheck bounced, wasn't given breaks. Once worked such a long shift that when I tried to punch out, the machine just punched me in again. Intimacy harassment from the boss's boyfriend. Stress hives. Underpaid. No insurance. I can't believe I stayed as long as I did. Story 114. Tragic end ideation has become my litmus, LOL. If thinking about doing this one more day, one more week, makes me want to take a toaster bath, then you gotta take a chance on something between those two poles, you know? Because the latter can just happen if you don't take it seriously. It took a few job changes over the last couple of years, but I think I found something stable I can at least stand. Story 115. Getting calls for assistance every day, even when you're on holiday. Wasn't even hard, they were just spoon-fed idiots. Story 116. When your boss tells you they have been getting complaints about you, but won't discuss those complaints, and your immediate supervisor has no clue why his boss is talking to you, but he just gave you a raise for good work. What? Story 117. When you're driving to work and hope you get hit by a car so you don't have to go in. Images of you in a hospital bed with 2 broken legs being a better thought than arriving at work safely. Story 118. When you absolute dislike waking up in the morning because you know you have to go to work. I had an absolute nightmare boss who criticized everything I did, and I felt like I couldn't do anything right. I had a pit in my stomach every morning, and I was just filled with dread at the thought of going to work. Although my current job stresses me the fudge out too, I no longer have that malingering dread. Lifting that weight off my shoulders was therapeutic. Story 119. I quit when I realized my mental health was completely fudge staying. It wasn't even that the people I worked with were bad. It was the fact that I got charged out at $115 an hour and made $40, while doing so much more than just field work. I did estimates, helped people with problems, dealt with customers, good and bad, was never given a proper role. It just defeated my will to keep trying. I dreaded coming to work because I never felt I was being compensated fairly for what I was doing. I quit and am starting my own company now. Just did a little job that paid me $80 plus a free tire change for an hour's work. Taking some workshops and just finished getting the necessary tickets to be able to pull permits. It's go time. Story 120. My boss signed me up for a random shift that started in 5 hours. I didn't know this and didn't get the notification on my phone because me and my friends were hanging out and I missed the shift. He yelled at me and threatened to fire me, and I'm about to put in my 2-week notice. I honestly didn't care because me and my friends had just put my trampoline next to his pool and we were going ham, so it was a fun day. Story 121. I was driving to work and actually felt like waking up in the car park not remembering anything prior to this point. The whole getting out of bed and driving to work was gone. That was the sign I needed to quit. This level of sleep deprivation was highly unhealthy and I could not go on like that. Story 122. If it's consumed your life, barely pays expenses, has no benefits, and your teeth are starting to rot out of your head, maybe give it another 3 or 4 years. Who knows, you might learn something new. Story 123. I wasn't able to work due to severe post-party depression. I could hardly function. My main support when my husband worked was my grandmother. She passed away while I was off work, and the day of her funeral I got a call from my manager saying we need to discuss my return to work. She lived 2 doors up from my gran, so she knew she had died. In small villages, people talk. Everyone knows when stuff is going on. I hung up the phone, wouldn't talk to her again, milked being on the sick more than I needed, then just looked for different jobs. XXX. Story 124. When my coworkers start to come to me to deal with management because I can talk to them and no one else feels comfortable. Yes, I'm talking about my current job. Story 125. You're forced to take on duties, responsibilities outside your job description with no compensation. It causes unbearable stress. Even when you're not working, you're not being paid a fair or comparable wage to what others in the same industry are paid. Learned early in my career from a very smart and rich guy to regularly check open jobs in your industry that you qualify for. Use them to ask for a raise. If they tell you no, then it's time to look somewhere else. Story 126. I left one job because a manager said to me, "Can't you be more like Jim?" Now, Jim used to send a lot of emails. He once sent an email saying he was going to send me an email. He would look busy, but everyone knew he was a lazy jerk hat. 7 team leaders, myself and a female TL, had the best performing shifts, the highest attendance rates, and we were the best. 4 others, Medicore, did the job but didn't care. Then Jim used to play the fool. Everyone thought he was useless and would often as female employees if they'd like to join his swingers club with him and his wife. That was a sign to me that the newer managers had no effing idea what was going on. Story 127. When you wake up, you instantly start thinking of excuses that you can call your boss and tell them you can't make it in. Story 128. When all the original people who always stuck around start leaving, that's your cue to quit. Also, if the head of finance leaves, you may want to start looking into getting a new job because the company you're at is likely going bankrupt. Story 129. When you realize management has no clue what they're doing and refuse to even acknowledge your ideas and help to further the business and working experience, usually because said management think you're coming for their job and they're very insecure. Story 130. I suppose wishing for a medium-level car accident that would give you an extended leave without ruining your life, hurting anyone else, or costing a fortune could be a signal that you really don't want to keep doing this. Story 131. When you start having frustrated conversations with yourself regarding your work, boss, coworkers, or just work environment in general. Story 132. The repetitive asking of questions because you have the experience in the subject, them not liking the answer, them doing it their way anyway. Lather, rinse, repeat, leading to them cornering you in a meeting to lecture about you not wanting to do your job. That's when it's time to quit, and I am. End rant. Story 133. When you just dread going to work. Not everyone likes or even mildly enjoys their job, but there is still a place to not dread and dislike every second you spend there. Whatever job you have, I can guarantee there is something that pays as well and the boss isn't a dipshit. For fun, and the policies might not be great, but they don't feel actively hostile, and few to no coworkers make you go, ugh, this person. Also, while it is pretty normal to feel tired after work, you shouldn't feel both mentally and physically drained after, to the point where all you can do after a work day is be tired as fudge and do some chores. Once in a while, sure. But if you look ahead and see your life being nothing but that sucks. Find something just a little lighter on you. Don't be afraid to quit your job if it sucks. It makes the world just a teeny bit better if we all do it. Conditions not good and sustainable? I'm out. The more we all keep saying that, the better minimum conditions for workers will have to be. Story 134. When you pull up in the car park, open the car door, sigh and realize you don't even want to step foot in the place. That was mine. Story 135. Finding it difficult to get out of bed in the morning. Taking 3 times as long on any task because you just can't focus on it like you used to, because you're burned out or bored. Story 136. As soon as they start talking about return to office, no amount of logic or data will deter them once they get it in their head that they need to get everyone back into the office. Even if you want to return, the overall productivity goes down significantly after ending WFH, and you'll have to explain it to them. It isn't worth the trouble. Story 137. When the boss forgets to take your stuff higher up the chain and blames you for not having it done or ready. I should have known he was working against me this whole time. I quit, and I'm so much happier right now. Story 138. When you start thinking about driving your car off the bridge on your way to work so you don't have to go to work. Story 139. When you see no reason to say good things about where you work and you have nothing planned career-wise with your current employer and you aren't learning anything new that is valuable, or your manager stops responding and avoids you. When that happens, start looking for a new job. Story 140. When the new owners are putting you on their computer system. In my experience, once you are on the new owner's computer system, lots of people start losing their jobs. You're no longer doing things the way you always did, but will be doing things their way. Story 141. When your days off are still occupied by anxiety about your job or people from your job bothering you. Story 142. I've always abided by the thought that everybody has bad days at work, but as long as you're having more good days than bad days, you're all right. I had a job where I was coming home mad 1 or 2 days a week, and I was okay with it, but when it switched to 3 or 4 bad days a week, I knew I had to make a change. Story 143. When you apply to internal positions and they suggest trying additional opportunities, they are being nice. It could be years before something opens up internally. Consider external opportunities. Get signed, then move on. In that order. Story 144. If you think worry about work outside of work, not the passionate, I love my job and want to solve this problem kind of thinking, it's time to move along. Story 145. When people are quitting or getting fired, and they start dumping their job on you for the same pay, or when subcontractors start coming into the office, upset that they haven't been paid. Story 146. I started having panic attacks, and my cortisol levels skyrocketed, and it began to fudge up my physical health too. I'm currently trying to look for a new one. Story 147. Boss is screaming at everyone all the time, and then when you come in to pick up your weekly check, they don't have it. Story 148. When it's hard to enjoy your time off because you know you will have to go back in the following day. Story 149. Sudden changes with no information or warning. I was with a company for 13 years and was in a role created with my skill set in mind that I helped develop. I ended up being busy enough due to people being added to my groups to support that another person was brought in. We worked together well. A while after our boss switched departments, changes started to get made in shady way. We were asked how we felt about taking scheduled lunches, as we went when it was slow, and always just one at a time so there's always coverage. 30 minutes after we stated we would not like that system, we were given set lunch and break schedules. We were moved from a chat system, which allowed us to help 4 people at once on average, to a phone system without any input. I even said during one of the meetings where we were just told of a change with no input that I felt like they were phasing our job out. I was assured they weren't. The other guy and I talked and both started looking for new jobs. Our one IT guy even told my supervisor to be careful or they would lose me. And she said something along the lines of, he wouldn't just leave. One of my coworkers last day, I messaged my manager asking if she had a moment to go over something. I put in my 2 weeks notice, which was met with the surprised Pikachu face. About 6 months after I left, they eliminated the position. I only know because a friend of mine took over it and let me know. Story 150. Yesterday after leaving work, I walked in the house, passed my wife on the couch, said, "Is it too early to start drinking?" and poured a glass of bourbon. I don't drink much, a glass or 2 a month maybe, but this job makes me want to drink, and I'm not comfortable with that. Story 151. When my job literally put me in a hospital bed and literally almost eliminate me. And like an idiot, I went back, only to have it happen all over again. Almost bled out that time too. That was the end. The company tried to screw me out of my disability. Story 152. Continuous and unannounced layoffs. Crazy expectations. Low morale. The one. If you asking, then it's time. Story 153. When your bosses try to find every excuse to nitpick and try to get you in trouble, like complaining to the VP of the company about you not being a team player because you didn't compliment them on repainting a fudge wall. Story 154. Whenever you can find a better job when your job poses an unacceptable risk to your safety, when your job poses an unacceptable risk to your family, when your job poses an unacceptable risk to your health, when you no longer want to work, you are also completely out of debt and you have enough to retire without welfare. Story 155. When you use PhoneLink on your PC to hide your phone use and spend an hour plus a day on Reddit and learning Spanish on Duolingo, and don't feel that guilty. Story 156. Basically the last 5 years at my job, only I haven't been able to find anything else. I'm beginning to think that this job availability is absolute BS. Story 157. When the workplace becomes toxic, and when you say something about it, no one in upper management says or does anything about it. Story 158. Sitting outside in your truck on your 30 minutes lunch break trying to finish off a 6-pack of beer to help you deal with going back inside to a soul-sucking job you dislike with incompetent managers that want perfection. How can anyone give 110% added value all the time? Beats me, I don't know. Story 159. If you find that in very bored meeting, if you send 90 of it reminding and redexting them on the mission and why it exists, just to being them up to date to discuss new business. Story 160. When your store manager makes clear remarks about you right next to you to their favorite little suck-ups. Fudge you meanie, that's why I'm not showing up today. Story 161. When the values of your company change. I worked at a place for 17 years and thought about how different the company that hired me was than the one that laid me off. The one that hired me knew its people were its strength. The one that laid me off saw me and my coworkers as liabilities. They honestly did me a favor laying me off. It was a great company at the beginning, but went to absolute shoot. I should have left that place years before I was booted out. Story 162. If you've just got home from work on Friday and you're already dreading that you have to go back in a couple of days, your job is stealing your weekend and you'd be better off with a pay cut and a job you can forget about for 2 days. Story 163. The fact that you made this post. If it's that bad, you should absolutely make plans to leave. Save up money or just start looking for another job on your days off. My former boss had to shut down multiple stores because he couldn't keep workers. He had 4 stores when I started, 2 when I left, and he's constantly having to fill in for missing workers. He'll either figure out what he's doing wrong or he'll continue to lose everything he has. Story 164. You notice you went from complaining about your job every once in a while and chalked it up after a while to everyone has a bad day. Tio, it's the norm and every day is a bad day. Story 165. All the furniture has been pulled out of the office and there's no phones at the end of the phone cords. Story 166. All the furniture has been pulled out of the office and there's no phones at the end of the phone cords. Story 167. They board up your office, remove the phone, PC, and remove your disabled toilet access. The heating vent is shut off. Story 168. When you are gradually removed from meetings one by one after the company is about to be or was recently acquired, the end is near, lol. Story 169. When your boss or company doesn't trust you anymore or value your opinion at all. At one job, my boss wanted to move forward with his strategy because I feel like it, and ignoring a data-supported strategy that was presented. That was the deal breaker. Second, the boss hired a contractor that was his friend, who was out of touch on the industry tactics and not tech-savvy to oversee the team. Nepotism. Story 170. When you dread going into work so much that you use up all your sick leave. Luckily, I have a good job now. Story 171. I had a job just after college near my house. I could walk home for lunch. It got to the point that I drink 1 or 2 beers at lunch so I could be numb enough to last the rest of the day. I knew that I had to go. Story 172. Since we've become a public traded company, shoot has gone downhill fast. I often think about leaving, but I've been in said industry since my early 20s. I don't know anything else, so I stay. Story 173. When your dreams turn into nightmares of work. My nightmare is closing the store at 8 p.m. and trying to stop people coming in. I'd be screaming my lungs off the entire nightmare trying to keep them out. Story 174. When Earl starts telling me about this one time he was hanging out with these chicks that fudge dogs, and when I reacted with astonishment and horror, looked at me as if I was the odd one for not fraternizing with women who engage in bestiality as if it was totally normal. If that didn't do it, it definitely would have been when Earl got caught jacking off on the golf course to elderly women. Turns out, Earl was an orphan. There's no way that MFer hadn't suffered serious abuse. Story 175. If your boss suggests you take another role in a different department, you're about to be fired if you don't get out soon. Story 176. When they start overhiring for less than current staff makes, those new hires are your replacements. Story 177. When your secretary tells you that she's feeling guilty and wants to tell her bodybuilding husband the truth about all the business trips. Story 178. Driving to work and thinking about swerving to hit a tree just to have an excuse to call into work. Story 179. When your spouse looks at you after yet again another rant about work and tells you to quit already. Story 180. If you're working at a place you dislike, you're bound to quit any day. Now, if it's a place you have some good coworkers and you always have energy for, and it all turns upside down with it, then yeah, I would say to join another company. Focus mostly on the energy and time that you give. And if it feels like it's not worth it, either ask for a raise, and if it's not given, find another place that appreciates it more than they do. Story 181. When they reduce your workload to easy, you might think you have it cake, but they are hiring and or restructuring your jerk out of there. Bonus points of, they ask you to make detailed SOPs for your job duties. Story 182. When you're pretty much the senior operator and the guy with decades less seniority get the new equipment and also go on family vacations with the supervisor's family. I guess someone's got to rub the suntan lotion in if the wives are getting loaded on pina coladas. Spla. Story 183. For me, it was when I couldn't go to sleep on Sunday nights because I knew when I woke up, I'd have to start another week of work. That was 24 years ago, and I feel validated that changing careers was the right move. I still have moments that I dislike my job, but the existential dread of work has never returned. Story 184. When my boss watched security videos to see where a coworker went throughout the day before he quit around noon, he saw we had a conversation. I was sat down with Sukyo, and they demanded I tell them the conversation and his plans. I didn't deserve to get cussed out for my coworker saying, "Goodbye, run. He's evil." Story 185. As soon as you hear they hired a consulting firm like McKinsey, BCG, Boston Consulting Group, Bain Company, Deloitte, or Goldman Sachs. Story 186. When an employer lays you off then calls you back to work because they made a mistake on who was and wasn't to be laid off. Story 187. When you see people in high-level roles leaving for positions elsewhere that are a lateral move or even a lower-level role. Story 188. When DoorDash offers you 4 for 17 miles repeatedly and gas is 4 gals. Calls on DoorDash because asking people to work for a loss makes you a 45B company. Story 189. You are the most intelligent, competent person in your team. It's then time to move on. You have stopped growing and being challenged. Story 190. Mine was I hit all the avenues of expansion and ended up back where I started, with little more party than when I started to expand out. That was my out. Story 191. I had to make this decision myself some time ago. I worked in retail at a bookstore. After a layoff which saw several long-term employees leaving, over time the loss of the combined institutional knowledge of these employees became very obvious. I started to have more bad days than okay days, dealing with new people and a shifting of priorities that started at the top of the company. It became clear to me that the people I came up with in the business were all gone, and the space for someone like me at the store was diminishing. New hires were growing beyond me. It was time to go. I'm very proud of my work there. And if bookshops are still around 10 to 20 years, maybe I'll make a return. For now, the only thing I want from my old store is that people make the place their own and do something extraordinary that will last. Story 192. I worked at a place called Furs during 2019, and what first sign that I saw that got me to quit was the fact that none of my coworkers were helping me on the line. I was a line server. The other line server was in the back having fun with the washer room guy and refusing to come out there and help me when we got busy. So it was me online and at the register and had to keep repeating until everyone was gone and taking their seats and eating and whatnot. But after that day, I called the next day and I told my manager that I would be quitting because F that. Then I said, F you, F that place, F the workers, F everything. Never look back. Story 193. I had my first tech job in 1987. Just getting it was tough because every interview was, what experience do you have? Finally, I was hired by a mom-pop offless machine sales service. I stuck with it, though it was a toxic work environment. The boss would yell at the receptionist, his wife, in front of customers. One day while riding the bus to work, I realized it just wasn't worth it anymore. I got off and called them and told them, I quit. You can keep my tools. Got on the bus, headed home. They wanted me to stay, but I needed to move on. Story 194. For me, it's always when my anxiety skyrockets. If my OCD becomes unbearable, this usually happens right after the first time a manager raises their voice to me. Do I quit? Typically not. I ignore several of these cycles until it starts impacting my home life too. By the time I quit my last job, I was turning around 3 to 5 times a night to check and make sure I didn't forget to do something at home or work, like locking doors or turning off the oven. That was both to and from work. I just could not remember if I completed tasks or not. Story 195. I was carpooling with a buddy and had to talk him out of crashing his car to get out of work. I secretly wanted him to do it so I didn't have to go in too. Story 196. Excessive drinking and getting angry when discussing something that took place months or even years ago. I worked in a jail for almost 20 years. I recently left because of severe mental burnout. Fun fact, corrections has the highest tragic end rate of any profession, including active military and police, at least according to some statistics that are a few years old at this point. Regardless, it is one of the highest tragic end rates of any profession. It also has the highest divorce rate. Oh, and highest substance abuse. Story 197. When half of the total revenue of a plant goes to the building insurance, whole place was made of wood and rotting away. Story 198. If you're seeing less skilled people lap you for promotions just because they are older or have been there longer, level up by going to a new company that will give you a more engaging job and pay you better. Story 199. When you take multiple calm pills and it still doesn't work. When you're driving to work and all you want to do is drive the opposite way and never return. Story 200. You wake up thinking it's Friday, but it's Monday. And now you're trying to figure out what's the least painful, harmful thing you can report to urgent care with to get out of work for at least the day. Also, all the job sites stop sending alerts because you've already applied to every job opening. Story 201. When you're suiting up for work and start to feel a tenderness on your sides, only to realize you're so stressed about going in that you've broken out into a stress rash. Story 202. When I realize I am smarter than the project manager mentor assigned, they will be useless for me to seek alternative answers. Story 203. Smallish company got taken over by a big corporation. Started cutting hours. No bench pay, meaning if they have no work for you, you get sent home and get paid. Not that much, but still. We have over 1,000 employees, branched with no other work for them, some being benched for more than 6 months. They cut out health insurance and made it more expensive. They wanted to micromanage us all the time. Story 204. If the coffee machine remains broken for more than 2 days, start looking for a new job. It means they're going to do big layoffs and don't want to spend the money to fix the coffee machine. Stay for the severance package, but start looking. If the right job shows up, bail. Story 205. When your foreman is a falling down tipsy on the job and brings in a kid who he worked with before, who happens to be his best little buddy, also a tipsy, and begins phasing you out, despite your cleaning up and fixing his fudge-ups, and more than a few times giving him a sandwich and some coffee so he doesn't smell like booze at the project manager's meeting, though he's clerally blasted off his jerk and slurring. Story 206. when it turns into a revolving door, when you're being micromanaged for no reason, when they're losing clients like crazy. Fudge you, splashwire.com, laying me off and blaming B for all your problems. Story 207, when it takes away from all other aspects of your life and makes you not want to do anything else. It just drains your energy and takes away your quality of life. Story 208, I heard the stupidest thing from my COO the other day. 15 minutes early is on time. Fudge you, pal. I don't see a dime for that nonsense. I asked him how it reflects on my check. I have a meeting at 11 a.m. tomorrow. Story 209. When your boss is putting off reviewing a large fraction of a year's worth of your work while getting to everyone else, and it has to be done in a couple months for your performance review period. Had a couple of professional disagreements with my last manager because I insisted on doing what the customer asked against his wishes. Story 210. When you dread waking up in the morning and going to work, it may be a sign that it's time to quit your job. Your mental and emotional well-being should always be a priority. And if your job is causing you constant stress and unhappiness, it may be time to consider moving on to something that brings you fulfillment and joy. Story 211. When I kept seeing my lunch again before going back to work and/or wanting to jump off the top of a high building. Story 212. Day 1. You'll meet the employee that makes you think, darn, I never want to become that person. When you realize you have, quit. Story 213. I just told my job to fudge off, was making okay $70K year cash, felt geet. I'm not rich, fudge you, but I got no thank you. Story 214. People crying in meetings, being put on probation just before raises are due, but not being told. General dread of the boss's door opening, or the sound of their shoes in the hall. I guess being able to recognize their shoes is also one. Team meetings being referred to as head rolling and coal raking. Being told you're not working the hours you are billing for, only to start really keeping track and seeing that you're working more than you were claiming. Your boss calling you when your first child is being born and asking, how long is this going to take? I probably have more, but those are my top 6 for leaving the last company I worked for. Story 215. When I shudder at the thought of doing an extra couple of hours once in a blue moon, especially if those extra hours are paid. Story 216. If you see the brass leaving, something serious is about to happen. The second you smell blood in the water like that, it's time to go. Another one I remember was having panic attacks Sunday night or Monday morning because I dreaded going back to work. I lived for those weekends and would go crazy, trying to maximize each day before jumping back into the slog. Story 217. Depression getting worse. I had a job for a short time where I would wake up absolutely dreading work. Customers tried to physically fight me a couple times, and managers were constantly asking me to help other associates not in my job frame department. Woke up one day and said, I'm done with this shoot. Went in and quit that day. Best feeling ever. Story 218. My job came under new management. It already wasn't paying too much, but then they decided it would be a good idea to let everybody do more work for less money. Quit soon after. Story 219. When they start hinting at workforce reduction layoffs. Always better to get ahead. You'd probably get a bump in pay too. Story 220. When people who don't need to work leave, those who have rich partners, lots of savings, or those who know they can get another job. Once they go, you know it's time. Story 221. When I walked down the stairs and got intrusive thoughts about breaking a leg, multiple times. Story 222. If you find yourself in a role where you're no longer learning or developing new skills, you should go. Actually, that is what I feel now. Story 223. It's funny. I worked in a warehouse where I had to walk for like 15 kilometers a day, and I suffer from arthritis in both my knees. I worked there for around 6 months. My last day was like this. I started the shift at 2 p.m., worked for about 2 hours. Then I started to cry like never before, just like this. And the only thing in my mind was, what the fudge am I doing here? I went to the manager. Hey, I quit, and I just went home. For the first time in my fudge life, I felt like I had full control. Story 224. A manager's job is literally to protect the assets of the company. You are one of those assets. If you don't feel protected, it's time to move on. Story 225. If I could go back in time, I'd leave when the annual pay raise was first less than inflation. You're getting demoted in pay every year, and getting a raise becomes harder and harder. By leaving, I mean reevaluating your CV and applying for jobs for a pay raise to either show your current company your worth or to jump ship and get new skills and experience at your new employer. No publicly traded company has ever cared about its employees. You have to advocate for yourself because the company has a fiduciary responsibility to look out for itself. Fair is fair. Story 226. Blatant signs like burnout aside, I think one of the first red flags is when you find yourself constantly thinking about work and your work responsibilities during your free time, especially if you're with your friends or family and you still can't seem to shake that anxiety off. Story 227. When the office becomes so filthy you become chronically sick. Wish I documented better and fought then legally, but I lost that chance, sadly. Story 228. When your company is bought in a merger, and the day after the merger is announced you see upper and mid-level management leaving. Story 229. I usually quit a job when it stops being worth it. Every job has its hardships. When I start dreading going to work every day, I start looking elsewhere. Story 230. You've been exceeding expectations and taking on a workload above your title, but we don't promote until the 5-year mark. My performance review a couple months ago. Story 231. Scott Carrier recorded a radio story for This American Life years ago about a difficult time he went through. He said he knew it was time to quit his job when he realized the one thing he wanted more than anything else in the world was to stand on his boss's throat and watch him choke. Story 232. When your mental and physical health is being affected in a way where it consumes too much of your energy to where you don't want to do anything afterwards or on the weekends. Story 233. When you're getting paid less for working the same or more, or when you stop getting annual raises. When you're the only one doing the job and still getting blamed for others' mistakes and taking extra work because of it, unless you're the project leader or in charge of the thing. Duh. When you get pressured into not taking your paid leaves. When you're casually asked to work on holidays. When you get thousands of calls from work during your off days. When they tell you to come work while you're in the hospital. When they don't give you your paychecks on time. When they bully you to work overtime. But when it comes to paying for overtime, they get mad and don't pay you for it. When they try to take over your credits and create drama. This list can go on and on. But my experiences aren't even that out of pocket when I look at some crazy stuff that happened to others. Welcome to modern-day slavery, aka adult life. LOL. Story 234. For me, it was when no matter how well rested I was a few hours before work, as soon as I clocked in, poof, walking zombie and drained out right away. Lol. Story 235. After the first several months or so, you think to yourself, more than once or twice, should I just quit? And that's it. Get you a job that doesn't make you wonder whether you should even be there. Story 236. I like my job, don't mind going, have superb work-life balance, make good money. I've been working in a promotion position covering for a hole in staffing. Someone left and was initially only scheduled to do it for 3 weeks. Did it for 7 months so far. Have been passed on promotion 2 times for the job I'm currently doing in favor of nepotism. It's teetering me towards the edge. Edit. I told them during the 3rd interview that they were fudge up, and if this was an election, it'd be a landslide in my favor. It's a job where communication with the rest of the staff is key to success, and everyone they have hired thus far, everyone else dislike. Story 237. You're ready to quit when you have another job offer. The other comments I have read are the signs to start seriously seeking another job. But don't quit one job until you have your next opportunity lined up. Story 238. When it starts to affect your mental and physical health, no job is worth sacrificing your well-being. Story 239. If a member of management or a department lead is handing out ice cream sandwiches, just walk out right then there. That's it for this video. Don't forget to support Vancher and my second channel, Vancher Ask. See you soon.